Right. Good morning. Welcome to the Planning Committee, 3rd of November 2021. I would like to welcome you to this meeting. I will now ask the Governance Officer to read out the domestic arrangements and the fire regulations. Thank you, Claire.
It's not going well, is it? Welcome to this meeting of the Babergh Planning Committee. Sorry, I'm all over the place this morning. Please ensure that you maintain social distancing from all other persons whilst in the chamber and in the communal areas. Please ensure that you wear a face covering at all times unless you are sitting down or if you are exempt from doing so, and that you use the hand sanitizer and wipes provided. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use. Please do not interrupt other speakers or hold separate conversations whilst others are speaking. If you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones are on silent or switched off. We will be using the e-voting for this meeting on the Modern Gov app, so please could members make sure they are logged in and ready to use the app. If you hear the fire alarm, leave the building immediately via a fire exit and make your way to the assembly point, which is Ipswich Town Football Ground. Follow the signs directing you to the fire exits at each end of the floor. Do not enter the atrium, ground floor area and walkways. If you are in the atrium at the time of the alarm, follow the signs to the nearest fire exit. Use the stairs, not the lifts. Do not re-enter the building until it's told safe to do so. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be recorded except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the Council to have consented to being recorded. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you are also consenting to being recorded by the Council and to the possible use of those sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Claire. Introductions. Today, Area Planning Manager is Mark Russell. The Legal Advisor is Ian Dupre. Case Officer is Samantha Summers, and Governance Officer is Claire Philpott. We have no ward members attending, Claire? Okay, right. Then we'll move on. Apologies for absence and substitutions.
None received, Chair.
Okay. Any declarations of interest? Nope. Moving on. Have you all had a copy of the minutes of the last meeting? Are there any factual corrections? If not, can I have a proposer? Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Sue, Councillor Ayres and Councillor Osborne. I will now ask you to set up the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, if you go to your app and select the plus sign in the top right-hand corner, this item is now in progress. Councillor Beer, can I take your vote, please? Thank you. Thank you, members. Chair, that's 11 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. The minutes have been confirmed and they will be signed at the end of this meeting. Notifications of petitions.
None received, Chair.
Okay, so the one that was announced last night, Council hasn't brought it down yet. Okay, thank you. Site inspections. We have a request for a site visit and this will be presented by Sam. Samantha, if you would be so kind.
Councillor Ayres has requested a site visit for the Sudbury Medical Centre, which is going to be located on the current lorry park between Waitrose and the Kingfisher Centre. Just getting the presentation up now. Okay. Just a couple of plans and also some photographs to show you the area to give you an indication of whether you feel that a site visit is necessary or not. The site is the hatched area, which sits between Waitrose on the west side and the Kingfisher Leisure Centre just to the northeast there. The site takes in part of the public car park and the lorry park. That is the red line site plan. The purple lines are public footpaths that crisscross the area. This is a current block plan just showing where the lorry park is and the public car parking area. And this is the proposed site layout. It's a part 2-storey, part 3-storey building tucked into beside the Waitrose store. There'll be some parking. Oh, the mouse isn't working. Sorry. Okay, so there'll be staff car parking in this area here, and then parking for patients in this area. Just some photographs of the site. This is the entrance to that area. Waitrose is on the right-hand side, Kingfisher, and the public car park is on the left-hand side. This is the Waitrose store. The building is not going to be any taller than the turret on the top of the Waitrose store. Tucked behind this tree belt here is where the lorry park actually is, and you can probably just make out some of the Waitrose delivery vans just in that area there that are parked on the lorry park. This is the Kingfisher, looking from the site towards the Kingfisher. This row of trees here will be removed to enable the development. This is the lorry park itself. Again, this is the lorry park from the back of the site looking out towards the public car park area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There has been quite a lot of controversy about the footpaths, and as good as those photographs are, and I realise how good they are, there is a concern about the parking around that footpath, which takes us onto the Valley Walk. So, to my way of thinking, for me personally, of course, it's not too far, but I would like the site visit, as agreed with Sue Ayres, who has put it forward for a site visit. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Hidden.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Where are the lorries going to go if we shift them from there, and who owns the site?
Do we know who's making the application, sir?
The council currently own the site. It is going to be sold to the NHS for making the medical centre possible. Part of the site, which concerns the footpaths, isn't actually within that ownership. It will stay within the council's ownership, and that allows for deliveries to the Waitrose store and turning areas for the trucks. In terms of the other footpaths, there is a fence that runs around the site that is to be maintained by the council for the future. So maintenance and ongoing works for pedestrian safety will be the responsibility of the council, not the landowners in the future.
I think, Councillor Hinton, that the answer to your question can't be reached today. I think it's something you'll have to ask when the application's been made before committee. Councillor Beer.
Just to follow on that, and I think you've answered it. The Waitrose lorries, I assume that they would park on their property rather than on council property.
Yes, they will be parking in the area that they currently park on. I believe that is actually council owned because they park on land that belongs to the council within the lorry park complex at the moment. I'm assuming that that will continue in the future.
Okay, so we have a proposer and a seconder. Any more questions? Councillor Busby.
Can I just ask Sue why she thinks that we ought to go and visit it?
Well, because unfortunately Sudbury is so close to Essex border, and I feel everyone should be aware of, you know, everything about it, the facilities and what it would do. And it's up to people to choose if they want to come there or not. But I just feel it would help everyone's decisions to see the surrounding area, because as Councillor Osborne said, there have been some objections. So if we have a clearer picture as possible, I just think it's useful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I totally agree with the situation with the. I know there's been consultation with Hardwick House. However, Gainsborough Trail actually runs onto the Valley Walk, and that footpath is a connecting position to that Gainsborough Trail. So, you know, I personally would like to have the opinions of the committee on that situation. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Beer.
I can't see where it affects the Essex side there. We've got the river down there and what have you. The footpath, I can understand what Councillor Osborne is saying, but I don't think it affects the Essex side. In fact, it affects Great Cornard more than anybody else, I would have thought.
Perhaps we'll find out in the site visit, Councillor Beer. Councillor Heaton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I can understand some people wanting us to have a look at where the footpath goes, etc. But what are the actual planning reasons for us having a site visit? Because I can't see any at the moment.
I think one of the reasons is that it's considered controversial. So, and as we know, a lot of you are looking, but to some of the people in here, and I think, what's the reaction of the planning department?
Well, Chair, it's up to members, obviously. I mean, we can't get into the merits of the case today because the applicant's not here. It wouldn't be fair, etc. But if there are elements of the layout and its relationship to the surroundings that members aren't getting from the submitted documents, then there's your reason to have a look.
Okay. Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, certainly it's controversial, but I would have thought we could see quite a lot from the photographs and plans that are coming forward. I'm not so sure there's a necessity. There's no other planning reasons, I don't think, but it is certainly controversial.
Councillor Owen.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, does everyone know the site? I mean, because it's like everything. If you don't know the site, it's good to have a look at the site, and it's good to be explained the site. And like David, Councillor Busby said before, it's good to have these site visits.
Any more comments? You have a proposal in front of you. If you have no more comments, we'll just take a vote. Craig, you've just set it up. We had Councillor Ayres and Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Beer. Thank you, members. Chair, that's 8 votes for, 2 against and 1 abstention. So that's carried.
Carried, and it will be next Wednesday
We're
morning?
looking to bring this item to the 1st of December, Chair, so
if we
that
can do
would
it next
usually
week.
make this the end of November for the site visit. But it could be earlier if you want.
Any thoughts about earlier or late? Next week it's free, isn't it? Next week is free, yes? Yeah. Thank you.
Could I just make a comment? Excuse me. Could I just make a comment, please, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
The consultation that's been taking place with that car parking, will that be available at the
Fine.
site? Well, no, the full count, the committee meeting. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't quite understand it. No, it sounded.
The consultation that has been taking place has been out for in Market Square from Hardwick House. Will that information from them be available at the meeting?
Excuse me if I may. I think Councillor Osborne is getting confused with the consultation of the NHS consultation rather than our consultation as a planning matter.
Yeah, I think can we ask?
Would you like it at the committee meeting or at the site visit?
Councillor?
Okay, I will contact the agent and see whether that information is
We
available.
might not get it, so let's just ask. Okay.
On that point, would we normally have a consultation report given to us at a site inspection? I could understand it coming to the council the planning meeting, but I don't think it's necessary for us to have that at the site inspection.
The controversial of the footpath stands out a long way, and as far as I can see, the NHS has not actually identified for certain items on that footpath whether that is going to be okay. They've not answered really the question about the footpath. That is the reason for that.
Okay.
I thought the whole point of the site inspection is to furnish us with information as to where this building's going to be. Obviously the footpath is important. I'm not saying it isn't, but that shouldn't be
Stop you there, Councillor. I'm going to say we're having the site visit. We'll ask for the information with the idea that if it is there in time for the site visit, it can also be used at the planning application stage as well. I see no, unless there's any reason why I can't ask for that. Okay. So that's what I would propose we do. And I would set the date for next Wednesday for the site visit, because we might want the Wednesday after.
Claire must arrange that, but Sam will vote. So.
Yeah. Okay, everyone, we're in for the site visit for next week. The morning. Well, normally you have them 9:30, and this is a good reason why not.
Chair,
Can we
sorry.
ask the people who live further away what time they would like? Because a lot of us live closer, and I think we should think of the people who live further away to answer this question. Thank you.
Well, it's normally we have them at 9:30 unless there's a request, a reason not to. Whether it's here or whether it's a long way away. That's been the practice. Sorry? Can you up? Okay. Councillor Beer.
Can I just ask advice on this one? Because this is going to affect the residents of Great Cornard considerably, can we invite the Cornard district councillors to attend this site inspection? Because I think it's very important, because that does affect the Great Cornard, because one of the proposal is that they close the surgery in Great Cornard in favour of this new building in Sudbury.
Yeah, yes, Councillor Beer, but that's not really a matter for planning matter. That's
well, I think they need to know
Well,
Chair, I think that's looking at the planning merits, and they'll obviously, I presume, be at the committee to give their word then, Councillor Beard perhaps. But
everyone happy with Cornard being invited to send their parish councillors? And if we make it... Sorry.
To avoid, are we talking about the district members representing Cornard? Well, I think I'd only say we need to be consistent with other practice. Looking at my governance colleagues at this point, I mean, I suppose it would tie in with practice at committee. Normally, ward members are invited to speak, even if they're not a regular member of the committee. But we might occasionally invite other ward members if it's a case of a closeness to a boundary or a neighbouring issue. But it's a matter of judgment, really, as to whether that's right in the circumstance. But it's.
Sorry, it's very controversial in Great Cornard, and I think we do need those Cornard members to be present at the site inspection.
I think, Chairman, it's a matter. I think we've said in the past, and looking at my colleagues, that it's the chairman's discretion. It's not really something the committee votes on as to whether the chairman can say that there is this is in X parish, but it's so close to Y parish, or all the traffic goes through Y parish, that we ought to really invite them as well. If you can hear the views of your colleagues on the committee, Chairman, but I think I'd say it's your discretion.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any more comments before I say we'll meet 9:30 next Wednesday morning in car park New Entrance? If you're any late, you won't get in it. Yes, we'll do 2 minutes. Councillor Gillespie, you've got a comment to make before we...
I presume the same thing applies to Sudbury, because there's more than one ward member for Sudbury. Are all of them involved?
No, there's one. Well? No, it's only one ward. Whose ward is it? Yours, Sue. It's Councillor Ayres' ward, and it's a single councillor's ward.
But there are 3 wards in Sudbury, and all 3 ward members are invited, are they?
The request was to invite the Great Cornard district.
They're coming anyway. 1, 2, 3. There'll be a representative of each ward there. Can we just please move on? I think it's enough. Thank you, Ken.
Chair, sorry to drop in a caveat here. I officially still need to do the COVID risk assessment on this, so we could just slightly tailor the wording to that effect. I have to do that, but I presume there's no problem.
Next week, 9:30. Thank you. Moving on. Schedule of planning applications. Now I can tell you that the planning application DC 2101-802 that was going to be second on the list today has been withdrawn and will be coming back to us again another day. So moving on, we are now on to planning application DC 2004-663 east of the Constable Country Medical Centre in East Bergholt. Sam, please, you're going to give the presentation for us.
Thank you, Chair. This is an agenda item for a deed of variation to the Section 106 agreement for land east of the Constable Country Medical Centre on Heath Road in East Bergholt. The proposal for reserved matters came to committee on the 16th of June of this year for the erection of 75 dwellings, a preschool, neighbourhood hub comprising a swimming pool, office space and a local shop, public open space and associated infrastructure and landscaping. Members resolved to grant reserved matters for access, layout, scale, appearance and landscaping, subject to some changes to the Section 106 agreement attached to the Outline Planning Commission. As a reminder to members of the site in question, this is an aerial photograph showing the site marked with the red dot, which sits adjacent to the medical centre and opposite the high school. The changes to the Section 106 included the definition of a registered provider. The definition was changed to include East Bergholt Community Land Trust to enable the village to secure some affordable units for local people. The other changes were to the mix and tenure of the affordable units and the addition of a RAMS contribution. The mix of affordable units was incorrect in the committee report, but in the table of papers was amended. This is the mix that members agreed to on the 16th of June. However, the tenure was not shown on that table. The committee report referred to 8 one-bedroom flats, and there are actually 6 one-bedroom flats and 2 two-bedroom flats. This table shows an extract of the deed of variation with the correct tenure and mix that has been agreed with Strategic Housing. The recommendation of officers is that members delegate authority to the Chief Planning Officer to agree to the Section 106 deed of variation on terms to his satisfaction as set out in the committee report. And these are for the changes to the tenure and mix, the RAMS contribution, and the definition of the registered provider. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I should have asked Councillor Hinton whether he's staying on the committee or acting as a... I thought you might be. Thank you. Any questions from members of the case officer? Councillor Hinton.
Just one quick one on the position of the East Bergholt Community Land Trust. Does that mean that all of the, in inverted commas, social housing will be under their control, or just a proportion of it? And presumably they can allocate those purely for local occupants if they wanted to.
What it gives the Community Land Trust is an opportunity to bid for the affordable units. So they could be a mix of registered providers, they could just be one, or it gives them the opportunity to get into to purchasing some of the affordable units, should they wish to, if the money is available.
So we could end up with a real mishmash of providers on that site.
We could do, yeah.
Any other questions? If not, moving on. There are no public representatives at all, so we'll just move straight into debate. Anybody want to open the debate or make a proposal? Councillor Barrett.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, this, so quite happy to propose the officer's recommendation to delegate to the Chief Planning Officer.
Okay, we have a proposal. Can I have a second? Councillor Osborne, do you wish to speak, or are you just happy to?
I'm happy to go with the
Okay, so proposal and seconder. Any more comments before we go straight to a vote? No? Can I ask you to set a vote, please, Claire?
Chair, members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Beer, can I take your vote? Thank you. Thank you, members. Chair, that's 11 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. Moving on. Okay. Thank you. We're all set. DC 21-02296, land to the rear of the Plough and Fleece Inn, Great Green, Cockfield. Cockfield. I invite Sam again, please.
Thank you, Chair. There are some extra papers in your tabled papers. Unfortunately, the Parish Council of Cockfield weren't able to come today, so they have provided some comments which are in your tabled papers. Also, there is a revised consultation response from County Floods team, which have removed their holding objection. They're now happy to approve the scheme. This application seeks reserve matters for layout, scale, appearance and landscaping for 28 dwellings at land to the rear of the Plough and Fleece Inn, Great Green, Cockfield. The application site is the hatched area on the plan. The site sits in the northwestern corner of Great Green, with the actual green just located here. There is a tree belt along the northern edge of the site, just here. Duke's Meadow is to the east, which is this housing development here. The Plough and Fleece Public House is to the south. And to the west of the site, at the entrance here, is a development currently under construction for 10 dwellings. The site would be accessed from Berry Road through the development of 10 dwellings into the field beyond, which is just here. There's a footpath link proposed along here, which links the development to Great Green. The site sits outside of the built-up area boundary of Great Green, which is shown with the brown line. The principle of development on site was established by the granting of outline planning permission, DC 19-04755. There is a public footpath, which is shown with the dotted green line opposite the site. There are listed buildings close to the site, all are Grade 2 listed. We have Old House Farm just here to the east, and Forge Cottage to the south here. The heritage team did raise concerns at outline stage on the principle of development on the site because of the potential impacts to the setting of the designated and non-designated heritage assets. During assessment of the principle at outline stage, it was considered that the public benefits of 11 affordable homes, public open space, a financial contribution of £18,060 towards highway improvements and biodiversity enhancements outweighed the less than substantial harm to the heritage assets. At outline stage, an indicative site layout was agreed after the Parish Council and planning officers negotiated changes to the plan with the developer. Outline permission was granted for the erection of 28 dwellings and also the repositioning of 3 dwellings of the development of 10 at the front of the site to allow the site to be accessed through. So these dwellings here have been repositioned. It was a cul-de-sac before with the development for 10. So this has been pushed back to either side to open up the site to allow access. Two conditions were added to the outline planning permission to ensure that details shown on the indicative layout plan, which you can see on your screen, would be included in a future reserve matters application. The first is condition 21, which states that the mix of housing should be that shown on the plan, which is the writing in that top right-hand corner. This included 5 bungalows, 11 affordable dwellings, and dwellings comprising 5 2-bed units, 13 3-bed units, and 10 4-bed units. The second condition concerns the layout of the site. Condition 22 required that the layout of the reserve matters should reflect that of this indicative plan. Of particular note is the retention of the northern tree belt, which is located here. landscaping belt between the development and Duke's Meadow along here. A footpath link to Great Green, which is here. And a central public open space, which is centred here. That was negotiated from a previous scheme where it was tucked into the corner of the site, out of the way, which we felt was not appropriate. Also, on this indicative plan, was shown 5 bungalows along this sensitive boundary with Duke's Meadow. And we felt that that was necessary to ensure that residential amenity of the properties in Duke's Meadow were protected. This is the site layout plan that's being considered by members today. The tree belt to the north is to be retained. There's a landscaping belt shown between Duke's Meadow and the development. 5 bungalows are proposed along this section here, and a 1.5 storey row of 3 dwellings just here, and the footpath link to Great Meadow just here. The public open space is centrally located. There are 11 affordable units on the site, 5 bungalows, and a mix of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom dwellings as set out in the outline permission. Drainage on the site will be held in a swale on the central public open space. The Parish Council have raised an objection to this and believe that they have been misled during discussions with the developer, because no mention of the swale was made during those negotiations. Annex II of the Mppf contains a glossary of terms used in the framework. Open space is defined as all open space of public value, including not just land, but also areas of water, such as rivers, canals, lakes and reservoirs, which offer important opportunities for sport and recreation and can act as a visual amenity. The swale will be a wet swale for most of the year, which is planted with wildflowers. Trees will be planted around the perimeter. Although the swale is too small to act as a sporting facility, it is considered to give visual amenity to the future residents of the development, with a large proportion of the dwellings looking out onto this area. The swale gives the development a sense of space and openness and will provide an important water source for wildlife. The concerns of the Parish Council are noted and can be read in the table papers. Suffolk County Council Floods team have no outstanding concerns in terms of flooding or public safety on site. This plan shows the access through the site from Berry Road, just here. It passes through the development of 10 dwellings, which are just outlined, just here, with the repositioning of 3 plots, 2 on this side and 1 on this side. The 28 dwellings have parking on plot other than 3 affordable units, which are those 1.5 storey units just here. In this southeastern corner, there is a parking court for those properties. There are an additional 8 visitor parking bays around the public open space. And they just marked here. 3 here, 3 here, and 2 just here. All market dwellings have garages that will have electric vehicle charging points. The affordable units have small sheds for secure bicycle storage. The parking on the site is compliant with current parking standards. Both Cockfield and Bradfield St Clair Parish Councils have raised highways concerns over the increase in traffic using the village lanes and also about larger vehicles during the construction of the site. Suffolk County Council Highways have raised no objection to the scheme and on highway safety grounds. This slide shows the scale of the proposed dwellings. There are 5 bungalows along this boundary with Duke's Meadow. 1.5-storey dwellings just in this corner here. And then the remaining houses that you can see here are 2-storey. The scale of the dwellings along the sensitive boundary with Duke's Meadow is considered to protect the residential amenity of the existing residents. This plan shows the tenure of the dwellings. The blue dots are the market dwellings, so they are along this northern boundary and around here. The blue dot, 9 affordable rental properties are shown with the pink dots, which are these properties here. And there are 2 shared ownership properties shown with the green dot just here, either side of that public footpath going through to Great Green. The appearance of the dwellings will blend with those of the development of 10 in design and also in materials. A limited materials palette is proposed which gives the development a sense of place. A mix of red brick, render and weatherboarding is proposed with either a red or grey plain tile to the roof. These materials are considered to blend with the existing dwellings in Duke's Meadow and also the development of 10 to the west of the site. This shows the proposed street scene. The top scene shows, and that's too many S's, sorry, getting in the middle, the 2-storey market dwellings along the northern boundary with the backdrop of the tree belt behind. So just here. The next scene shows the bungalows and the 1.5-storey dwellings, also with that landscaping belt behind, which forms a boundary with Duke's Meadow. And this bottom one shows the affordable units, the pairs of semis, and also the shared ownership houses and one of the market dwellings just to that southern boundary. Moving on to the house types, these are the linked detached 3-bedroom bungalows with single garages. This is the detached bungalow in brick. This is also a 3-bedroom property with single garage. This is the same house type, but is finished with render. All 5 bungalows have 3 bedrooms and are market properties. This is the terrace of 3 affordable rental dwellings. They're finished in the same red brick as the market dwellings and have 2 bedrooms each. These properties are 1.5 stories high and are set in the southeastern corner of the site with a parking court just tucked in the corner of the site. This is the detached shared ownership affordable dwelling, finished in render and has 2 bedrooms. There are 2 of this house type with the footpath to Great Green running between the 2 properties. This is a 3-bed affordable pair of semi-detached dwellings. These are finished in red brick. There are a total of 3 pairs of this house type, 2 pairs finished in brick and 1 in render. And this is the same affordable but showing you the render type. Moving on to the market dwellings, this is a 4-bedroom in brick. The same house type, but in weatherboard. And again, the same house type in render. This is also 4 bedrooms with a mix of render and weatherboarding. The same house type, but using weatherboarding and brick. And this is a 4-bedroomed house in brick. This is the final 4-bedroom house type, finished in brick. There's just one type of three-bedroom dwelling, and there are a total of 7 three-bedroom dwellings on the site, 10 four-bedroom market dwellings. All dwellings will have air source heat pumps, including the affordable dwellings. Moving on to the landscaping, this plan shows the tree planting around the swale, and the circles are the trees that are proposed on the site. There's also quite a bit of tree planting along the roadside, particularly on that northern boundary. There's also a group planted here in this car parking court. This shows the tree belt to be retained along that northern boundary, and the proposed landscaping belt between the bungalows and Duke's Meadow just here. There is a proposed grouping of trees in the car parking court for the affordable dwellings. The trees shown along the southern boundary just here are to be retained. This again shows the trees on the street and around the swale. So around here, and also the trees along this road. The scheme includes biodiversity enhancements to the site, which include integrated bat boxes, standalone bat boxes, bird boxes, swift nest bricks, and hedgehog fencing. These are all important features of this edge of settlement development, and the existing woodland will be utilised for the bird boxes and standalone bat boxes. The plan also shows the 5-metre landscaping buffer with Duke's Meadow. The trees planted will be outside of any boundary fences. I don't have too many photographs of the site. This is probably the most useful in terms of understanding the site and the surroundings. This is the access point. Ooh. Just here, going through that development of 10 at the front of the site, and then entering the site, which is currently an unused field. These are the dwellings in Duke's Meadow that share a boundary with the site. The 5-metre landscaping buffer would sit behind these dwellings, and then beyond that, the 5 bungalows. This is taken from within the site, looking towards that shared boundary with Duke's Meadow. The bungalows and the landscape buffer would be along that boundary with those houses. This is the existing tree belt along the northern boundary, and the 2-storey dwellings would be located here. This is a CGI given by the architect showing how the site is likely to look in the future. The scheme is considered to reflect that shown at outline stage, and therefore the application is acceptable. At the time of writing the report, there was an outstanding matter of SUDs and a holding objection. Details have been received to address the remaining lack of information. Suffolk County Council Floods team have lifted their objection, and therefore the recommendation is slightly different to that in your agenda. The recommendation is for approval of the reserved matters with conditions set out on page 55 of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Any questions? Councillor Hinton, you are first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. Did you say that there were air source heat pumps for all properties?
That's correct, yes.
Right. And the other part of my question would be the parking court next door to the block of 3 affordable houses. As there is only provision for electric charging points for secure garages, what happens in that area, and how is it controlled to make sure that every Tom, Dick and Harry can't go and charge his car up there?
Okay, so none of the affordable houses have the car charging points. It's just the market properties who have garages that have that facility.
Sorry, there was an actual updated plan that, following discussion with Police and Chisnall, we gave every house on the scheme at least one car charging point.
Okay, apologies for that.
Sorry, but where would that charging point be for that terrace?
Perhaps that's a question that we could ask the agent during his chat.
Councillor Osborne, you were next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's the old chestnut, I'm afraid, to do with the swale. Samantha has spoken about the depth of water in that swale. What health, what safety matters around that swale has been considered, please?
At this moment, there is no fencing proposed around that. I have discussed that with the agent. They are quite happy for a condition to be added for details of fencing to be agreed if the scheme is actually approved today.
Thank you. Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two questions. Slide 9, please. Is that the park and block? Sorry, slide 9. Is that the park and block on the right-hand side, down the bottom there? And how many cars can that hold? And is that where you're going to have some of these charging points? That's my first question.
I can't actually see the detail of what's actually on the plan from here, I'm afraid. I know that all of the parking spaces are compliant with Suffolk County Council highway standard. The agent might be able to help me with how many parking spaces.
There's 4 in that.
4.
And there's also 2 spaces.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
to the front there.
Can you wait till we ask you, please, rather than butting in? And you also have your time to speak. And so I was going to ask Councillor Beer to save his question for when the agent speaks. Thank you very much.
That's fine. My second question then, because he'll be able to give us the amount that are in there. Slide 28, I think it is. Well, that one, all right, I'll let you get to 28. Yeah. My question is that it's the area around the open area. Is there footpaths around that, or is this a tarmac footpath, or is this just a grass verge all the way around it, which people can drive up with their cars and churn it all up?
I believe that it is grass verge with the visitor parking.
Is there a slide then, Mr. Chairman, that shows that a bit clearer? Because that one might do it. The last thing we want is for that green area to be used to park cars. We all know what happens on our estates, and if they can get a car parked up there, the grass will be churned up. We need to protect that. Now, whether that's something we need to put to the applicant in due course, I don't know. Certainly, we haven't got anything to protect that, have we?
I don't think there is anything to protect it at the moment. There are trees around most of that boundary, so I think that would probably stop some of the parking. But I know what you're going to say. You would like some bollards?
Well, we need either hedging, Mr. Chairman, or something physically to stop motorists from parking and encroaching on that area.
Okay, so that is something that we would be able to secure by condition, the detail of that to be agreed at a later stage.
Perhaps we can also ask the agent.
Yeah, well, I will put that question to them because, as you know, Mr. Chairman, and many members in this chamber, we have these estates, and with the best will in the world, they end up with 3 or 4 cars because the family grows up and they learn to drive and what have you. They've got nowhere to park, and if we don't make this stand now, it will get churned up and that will look awful.
Okay,
Thank
can
you.
ask the agent. Thank you. Councillor Park. Oh, sorry, Councillor McLaren first.
Thank you, Chair. Sam, the shared ownership houses have got the main public footpath, haven't they, going through between them. What protection is envisaged for the people who are living in those houses? Because you can imagine it's going to be quite, I think it's the main footpath, isn't it? What protection is there going to be? Because there's going to be a lot of traffic, I would have thought. Human traffic, not cars and things. But there will be a lot of people using that, bikes and prams and people.
Yeah, I believe that all of the gardens are fully fenced with hedgehog fencing.
So it will be up to the rear, of the house, if you like. Yes.
Along the side and
right
to the rear.
end.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just maybe a small point. I've actually got two questions, Chair, but maybe the first one might be a small point. But I picked up that you mentioned the parish council felt that they had been misled over the swale with the developer. So can you expand on that? And then secondly, and rule me out if this is out of order, Mr. Chairman, but the applicant, according to the papers, is Sudbury Group Limited, but I can't find them at all on the company's house website. So I'd always like to have a look and just see who the applicants are. So just wonder if you can give any information on those two items, please.
In terms of the applicant, I can't really give you any details on that as such. The agent might be able to clarify that point later. In terms of the parish council, during the outline permission, the application ran on for quite a long time with lots of negotiation going on with the developer directly that I wasn't included in. But also I had my own negotiations with the developer. So the scheme that came forward at outline is what was agreed with the parish council and with ourselves here. I think the confusion comes, we all know that there has to be drainage on the site when you're putting that many houses in. If it's over 10, it needs some suds. We all know that that normally goes to the public open space, either in crates or a swale. I don't think the parish council realise that that is normally the case. So I think that's where they feel that they were misled. They saw it as just a green grassed area. Crates in this particular place, it was not acceptable to Jason. He wanted open suds. So there is nowhere else on the site to put it.
Thank you. Question. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the picture there, those market houses, I think, is that northwest, the back gardens facing on the ones at the top? I just wondered how big are those gardens, because looking at that picture, it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of light in the back gardens. There could be a lot of shading. I just wondered how long the gardens are.
Okay, so they are north-facing gardens, so they will be limited with sunshine anyway. And you're quite right, the trees will form that backdrop. But as the sun moves round from east to west, they will get some sunshine. All of the gardens are good-sized gardens in modern terms. We use a standard of 100 square metres is really acceptable for family houses. They all reach that standard. Ideally, they probably wouldn't be north-facing, but on a site such as this, they will get light, but only at certain times of the day.
Any more questions? Councillor Busby.
You say it so sweetly. They're supposed to be tenure blind, the affordable housing, but they don't have any garages, so won't that make it obvious which ones are which?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because of the cost involved. We hardly ever see affordable dwellings with garages. in terms of their design and the material palettes that used, it is the same for all of them. They are smaller dwellings. They will look slightly different, of course they will. That is something for members to decide whether that is acceptable or not.
And how big are the garages where there are garages? Will they take an SUV?
It's a good question. I assume that
Please.
I assume that Suffolk County Council have looked at the size of those garages. They are all they're parking standard compliant, so I would imagine that whether Suffolk County Council Highways have taken into consideration SUV, particularly, I don't know, but there's space on their driveways to park the bigger vehicles if they will not fit in the garage.
But we've counted the garage space as one of the parking spaces. So if it's not big enough to take a car, then it's not a parking space.
Highways have said it is big enough to take a car.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions? No? If not, thank you, Sam. If you'll hang on there. We have no member of the parish council. We have no objector or a supporter. We have Mr. Blaine McMahon for the agent. And please, thank you for trying to help us out, but if you could wait to be asked. You've now got 3 minutes to address us, and then you'll have plenty of time to answer the questions that the members have got. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Blaine McMahon and I am the agent for this application. This application seeks to discharge matters relating to the layout, scale, appearance and landscaping following the approval of the outline application in February this year. The proposed development provides 28 dwellings of varying sizes in a pleasant village location on the western edge of the existing Duke's Meadow development and has been designed to meet the modern-day living requirements of local people and families. Furthermore, the development provides a policy-compliant level of affordable housing and parking as confirmed in the responses from Strategic Housing and Suffolk Highways and subsequently noted in the officer's report. The dwellings have been designed in a traditional style, taking cues from the local area to integrate with the surrounding village character, and in particular the 10 dwellings which are currently under construction directly to the west of this site. This has been achieved through a carefully selected palette of materials and design details which creates a sense of place for future residents. The dwellings will be built to current building regulation standards with a particular focus on sustainable design principles. This includes a commitment to a fabric-first approach through the proposal of high-performance thermal insulation and energy-efficient glazing and window frames. Rainwater harvesting, electric car charging points and air source heat pumps are also provided to all dwellings. Following the outline consent, a number of recommendations were received from Lavenham Ward member, Councillor Margaret Maybury, which have been integrated into the developed design proposals. Some of the key design features include bungalows, which are proposed along the shared boundary with the Duke's Meadow development, with bungalows having been identified as a requirement for future years in the Babergh District Council area. The green border between Duke's Meadow and the development has been widened and will be planted with more suitable mature trees, improving the privacy of all existing and future residents. The development is landscape-led and responds to existing landforms to create quality green infrastructure, and existing mature trees are retained to soften the impact of the development while acting as an ecological corridor along boundaries. The site will be served by a single access point from Berry Road, and a pedestrian cycle link will be provided as a direct route to the village green. Building frontages will provide a high level of surveillance and security to principal access routes and central open space. Finally, I would like to address the concern raised by the Parish Council regarding the central open space. The central open space and detention basin have formed an important part of the site's drainage strategy since the flood risk assessment submitted with the outline application identified that the site's poor infiltration rates required the use of attenuation storage in the form of a basin. Despite there being periods during extreme rainfall events when the basin will contain water, this feature will, in combination with the proposed landscape strategy, provide a pleasant and attractive outlook for all dwellings which have been orientated to enable views across it. This design approach is again confirmed as acceptable by the planning officer in their report. I'd like to thank members and the chair for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you all today, and for the officer for their recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to sit tight, I think you may have some questions. Councillor Beer, would you like to kick off?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes. Good morning. You heard my question a bit earlier, but I'll rephrase it because I quite liked your words of modern-day living. And as we all know, that people have more than 2 cars and we run out of spaces. What precautions are you taking for that green area, which you saw on slide 28, to stop people abusing it? Because we all know that if you run out of spaces, you're going to park as near as possible to your property, and a low hedge all the way around between the trees would solve the problem. I don't know what precautions you're perhaps taking there. That's one.
So actually, if you look at the site layout plan itself, we have indicated bollards all around the edge of the open space, so that will stop people actually being able to drive up over the verge and park on the green. Again, if we do deal with the safety issue via condition and perhaps install a estate rail, then again that will prevent any parking and will remove the need for the bollards.
Well, in answer to that, could you put in a small sort of like scaffold pole and put planting it in, hedging, so that would stop that rather than say ugly bollards? But I'm not. That's just a point, Mr. Chairman. My second question is that the park and court, which we've seen up there, is that parking for properties ABC, or is that open to anybody to park there? Because I can see that little cul-de-sac of a parking court being used for repairs and all sorts of things.
No, that will be conveyed specifically to the 3 1.5-storey dwellings.
Right, so that would be controlled as far as you can do. Thank you. But I am quite concerned, Mr. Chairman, and to you, that you do pick up this problem, which will become a problem of people parking on that green area. So I think bollards don't always look attractive, but certainly if you put some planting there, that would stop it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, hopefully the local member may comment on that as well.
Any more questions to the agent? Councillor Osborne. Sorry, Councillor Hinton. I'm getting muddled up again. Councillor Hinton first.
I know I can be schizophrenic, but this is ridiculous.
My fault.
Just one point that's not been mentioned anywhere in our reports or anything, and it links in really to what Councillor Beard's been saying about low hedges as well. Who's going to look after the swale, stroke suds, stroke grass areas, open space within this site?
A private management company has been appointed to deal with all open space and the maintenance of that. As one of Jason's requirements for discharging his condition was to provide SUDS maintenance plans, which obviously includes the open space, as it doubles up as an attenuation basin.
Councillor Ayres.
Thank you very much. I'm actually very impressed with all of this. My real concern is the open space where that water will be, and what worried about as a retired teacher about children and accessing that. Will there be fencing, whatever? So that's one question. But the other one is slightly facetious. The biodiversity enhancement strategy. You've missed out maybe putting koi carp in the water so you can feed the herons. Thank you.
So in regards to the first point, as I said, we would be happy to, as a condition, provide evidence after this, if this was to be approved, as to how we would make sure people are safe in the use and milling around the site. In response to the second question, again, we can look at, or someone can come along and put them in themselves. But yeah, no, but if that is something you want, then yeah.
Done, but he was so worried about his koi carp.
Councillor Ayres, an admission like that should not be aired in public. Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I did have a couple of quickies, as Mr. Councillor Hinton would have said. Relating to Councillor Hinton's question, so I take it that the management company will be charging residents for the per year for that work to be carried out. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the other question was, and I'm not sure if I've got the right situation, on 5.3, you look at the concerns being raised of the application process as soil being moved around the site. Could you just give us an update on the position of this, because it seems to be quite a concern. It did on the it's noted that comments received through publicity referred to soil being moved.
As far as I'm aware, that's just soil being moved from the 10 units at the front of the site. So obviously, as part of this application, the levels have been agreed, and if there is excess soil that's been moved around to the second half of the site for whatever reason, that will be taken away again, or will be made good by the contractor constructing the first 10 units.
And I take it that any of the vehicles that are used for this will be cleaned down before they make the highways?
Yeah, a construction management plan indicates all the sort of cleaning requirements and various things like that to make sure that's dealt with.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I'll just come back if I can, Mr. McMahon, and strike it out if it's not in order, Mr. Chairman. But can't find the Sudbury Group Limited. Can't find the applicant.
So yeah, I just checked that myself, and it's incorrectly stated as Sudbury Group. It's Sudbury Homes Limited. Yeah, sorry about that.
Thank you. Councillor Jameson.
Thank you. Hi. The report says you're going to maximise the use of passive solar energy in the layout and orientation of the buildings and windows. Just wondered if you could expand on that a bit, because the buildings are all in different directions. I wondered how that's going to work.
So the passive solar design?
Yeah.
So in terms of how it'll be in combination with the insulation we're using to make sure that there's a good degree of airtightness within the buildings, the windows themselves will be energy efficient, and then the idea is that if you have a tight building envelope, you're minimising the amount of heat that escapes during the winter months, which will reduce your energy bills, and any sun that is on your property in winter months will actually allow for some degree of heating. But yeah, so it's all sort of like an integrated approach to sustainable design, really, which is in combination with several items.
So when it says layout and orientation of the buildings, because the buildings are all at different orientations, aren't they?
Yeah, but obviously, primarily the dwellings are orientated with a elevation facing south, east, or west. So they'll always have the benefit of some kind of sunlight or solar gain in those instances.
Okay. And you decided not to use any PV panels on these. Wonder why that was?
So I did speak to the contractor on this one and asked them why they felt that they didn't want to use solar panels, but they said that the energy efficiency requirements put on them by building regulations could be met with the installation of air source heat pumps, and that PV sort of wasn't needed as well as those.
So it's just a case of just going as far as building regs would allow, is that right? We are going to aim, or we are aiming to make sure that the building exceeds the current building regulation standards. And that will be achieved through other measures, including, as I mentioned, the windows, the insulation on site, etc.
Any more questions for the Councillor Busby?
Thank you. You referred to the pedestrian cycle path, which would lead to the village green.
Yep.
Have you thought about funding a crossing to get the pedestrians across the road?
No, but I guess that could be something that's dealt with by a Section 106 agreement. I assume. If that was wanted, some kind of contribution.
To continue with my question in the same vein, do we know what the speed limit is along where the footpath comes out?
It's 30, isn't it?
30?
Yeah. As soon as you enter the village, I think it turns into a 30 zone.
So is that where it starts the village, or
well,
the actual motor vehicle entrance to the site, is that still within the 30, or is that beyond the 30?
So what the Berry Lane access? I'm not sure where the 30 comes in. I think it will probably just be just before there.
Okay, but I was just thinking that it could be a dangerous crossing because it's on a curve. And you're encouraging children to come out at that point and to go across that road. I think they might need some assistance. I think a crossing would help them, but also generally slow traffic down.
Okay.
Yeah, something we can look into.
Sam, yes, carry on.
There is already a section 106 in place with the outline permission with over £10,000 towards highway improvements for footpaths. There are no other crossings to Great Green from any of the other development sites around the green. And I don't think it would be appropriate to ask for one at this stage. That probably should have been picked up at outline stage rather than this reserve matters, because we're just looking at the detail of the plans at this stage.
So what are is the £10,000 being allocated to?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it is for highway improvements to footpaths. So I don't know whether that's in other parts of Great Green or whether it's specifically along between the access point and the pedestrian way. But that is in place already, so we can't ask for any more at this stage.
Presumably, the village could use SIL, could it? Its SIL contributions to fund something like that if they felt it necessary?
Certainly they could approach the SIL team and see whether that's something that they could ask for. I'm not too sure of the details of exactly what parish councils can ask for with SIL monies, but possibly that could be the case.
Councillor Beer, you have...
Just following on from that, there was no request from the parish council for a pedestrian crossing to be put there, and highways have obviously been and looked at that and decided that it's safe and don't require it. But I think it could be useful in future that we knew what the £10,000 that is being allocated, where they were going to spend that. Whether it was that end halfway along or the other end of the village. So that might be something in future that we should try and get from them. I don't know if it can be as easily as that forthcoming. It may be for something that develops. But I think it's important that we do know that. But
I think Councillor Beer, that's something we will have to put to the Cabinet Member for Planning at some time. Not when he's here being not while he's here being the warden.
I accept that. I do accept that.
Thank you. Councillor Park.
Thank you, Chair. Are we still able to ask questions of the
yes,
of
yeah,
the
he
agent?
hasn't stood down yet.
Not material at all to the planning application per se, but could I just ask out of interest, do your clients plan to use Babergh's building control or outsource? Can I just ask as a matter of interest?
They'll use the local authorities building control, I believe.
No? Right, well, thank you very much, but if you'd like to remain there, just in case they have another question that you can answer. Thank you very much indeed. We now have the ward member, Councillor Arthey. You have 5 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm addressing you as the ward member this morning. I wondered if we could, Sam, have the plan of the outline up. Is that possible? I don't know if you can split the screen or something. So, yes, thank you, Chairman. I have to say that the Parish Council and the community feel that they and you have been sold a pup, because this is developing into something different.
particularly the good-sized open space, which has become a smaller area and is basically a hole in the ground. You have heard from the planning officer about your previous decision, which I'm sure you remember, and the balance you had to consider then regarding the public benefit, particularly of the central open space. This had been negotiated during the developer's engagement with the parish council and also negotiations with the planning officer. The path from Great Green was to lead into that open space. The central open space was to afford good visibility for the houses to be able to see children who may be playing in that area. So if I can just refer to the plan, Chairman, you can see that the link actually went into the area of open space at the western end, and you could sort of get an idea of the size of that, because when you look at the current proposal, you'll see how it shrunk, and it now goes into, well, it ends up on a roadway. So that link was quite an important part of the considerations, because it came from Great Green and led straight into the western area of what we thought was going to be public open space. It was also part of the changes to de-urbanise the scheme following heritage concerns, and those concerns you considered against the public benefits. There's a little bit about that on page 41 and the top of page 42. And one of the principal public benefits you identified was the provision of that link and the public open space, and that's mentioned at paragraph 8.4. Another point, which is to do with the shrinking of the central area, you will see that the gardens are now larger, which is welcome, but that of course is at the expense of the public open space, which has shrunk considerably. Furthermore, the opportunity has not been taken to increase the depth of the rear gardens at the eastern boundary. It even seems, and this is only my measurements, but it seems that the distance from those properties to the boundary is now 4.5 metres where it was 5. So the opportunity to move the dwellings sort of into the centre, if you like, which has been taken on the northern and southern boundaries, doesn't appear to have been taken on the east. And it was at the east where there were the main concerns from Duke's Meadow, which is the development to the east. Lastly, and thank you for picking it up yourselves, there's the issue of safety. The parish council are very concerned regarding the safety of children playing in this central area and its pond. We've heard that fencing can be provided, and I think would be required. Probably further detracts from the visual amenity of the area. I'm guessing that life belts may also have to be provided to address safety issues. But the point is that the public benefit is not what it was when you considered the outline application. I believe that public benefit in your balancing considerations was absolutely key. Lastly, this is an extra lastly because of something that Councillor Busby mentioned, I would support a funded crossing, as would the parish council, I'm sure. Great Green is a fantastic facility. It's got a new adventure playground, which we've contributed to via SIL contributions, and anything that we could do to help people to cross from outside of Great Green, if you like, onto the green, would be welcome. At the other side of the green, the parish council are already considering whether they might be able to fund a crossing. The planning officer is absolutely right that there are currently no crossings onto Great Green, but it's a fantastic facility. It's surrounded now by more and more houses, and a crossing for that road, albeit that it's a 30, people do nip down there, and a crossing on this side of the green or the other side of the green and the other side of the green would be welcome. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Arthey. Have we any questions for the ward member? Councillor Busby.
Can you put the slide up where you've got the Duke's Meadow and the proposed? Just that you talked about the shrinking of the back gardens on the eastern side. The development next door, Duke's Meadow, I believe it is, I don't think there's any green area there. They've all got fairly large gardens, so there's no public benefit from those houses being built. It does seem kind of harsh to land this development with a requirement which wasn't applicable to the one next door. I mean, I agree. I think it's better if you've got the space, but I understand that there's drainage issues in this particular area, and if it's just a green play space, would that deal with the drainage issues, or have you got to have a sud space in there?
I'm not quite sure how that's a question for me, but the point I was trying to make is that the developer has taken the opportunity to move the properties on the northern side of the development a little bit south to increase their rear gardens, taken the opportunity to move the ones on the south a little bit north. The effect of that has been to squeeze the central area, which is now not public open space anyway, or not in the sense that it's a recreation area for use by residents. All I was saying was that the opportunity hasn't been taken to move the properties on the eastern boundary slightly to the west and increase their rear gardens, which is a shame because that was the principal area of concern from the neighbouring development at Duke's Meadow. They were seeking to get the greatest separation possible, but I accept that in terms of distance to, and I'm sure Sam Summers will confirm this, in terms of distance from the proposed dwellings to the existing dwellings in Duke's Meadow, it is more than the minimum requirement, isn't it? But all I was saying was that, whilst the central area was being squeezed, it's a shame that the opportunity wasn't taken to actually move those properties on the eastern boundary a little bit to the west and increase that separation further.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett, did you have a question?
I'm not sure that Councillor Arthey can answer it, but it's interesting, isn't it, that you've got a SUD scheme in the new development. Has Duke's Meadow got any history of flooding?
Not that I know of, apart from when there was a willow tree that blocked a drain.
Because it's quite an open site, isn't it? It's quite an open area. Yeah. So it seems that the modern day requirement to have a SUD scheme in the 70s development doesn't require a SUD scheme, it doesn't flood. Okay.
Any more questions? No? And thank you much, Councillor Lastly. Thank you very much indeed. Right. We'll now open up the item for debate. Would anybody like to kick off?
No, thank you.
Nothing else from the Morgan. Anybody like to kick off with a comment? Well, I'm going to... Oh, go on, Councillor Beer.
Well, I'll just move the officer's recommendations with the additional one that you mentioned in your presentation. Thank you. For approval.
Do I have a second to that before we move on? Councillor Barrett, do you want to make a comment? No. Thank you. Councillor Parker, you wish to say something?
Yeah, well, I will just mention, Chairman, I always take the time to have a look and see, who applicants are in any given application. And I would, hence the question I asked about who might be undertaking the building control. And I understand that there's very little compliance oversight that the building control have, but I'd like some reassurance as to, what sort of compliance the local authority can confer upon any development actually that comes forward. you know, because we're hearing of the parish council being misled. The ward member who's got the boots on the ground is telling us that the development seemingly has morphed into what it is, and the report mentions, you know, bits of earth moving around. And just the simplest of searches shows, not relevant to the planning application, but the simplest of searches shows that this is the, you know, all bar the same developer that Babergh has had difficulties with in the past. Now, not material to this committee's considerations, however, we are elected members and we have a primary responsibility to our constituents. So the question is, what level of supervision can be applied to any development, please?
Mr. Russell.
Sorry, Councillor, was that in reference to, when you say supervision, in reference to?
To the construction phase, building regs.
We don't, as a matter of rote, as you probably know, go and check the sites being built properly. Obviously, there was a recent case with levels, which you'll be aware of, and we are aware of that as an issue. The issue of the soil, which has been moved onto the site, which could obviously inform part of your concern, has been reported to us, and I think my colleague will confirm what we're doing about that. Yeah.
It was raised at outline stage that this particular developer has had problems with Babergh before about levels. So we, at outline stage, we did put on a condition for levels to be agreed prior to commencement. Alongside this application for reserved matters, we also have one running for the discharge of conditions, and one of the conditions to be discharged is levels. They have been to our enforcement team for checking over, and they are fine. However, because of objections or concerns raised during this application about soil being moved around, some of the telephone calls that I've had are informal and they haven't been put into writing. Our enforcement team are aware of this site, and I have been assured that they will be carrying out 3 monthly inspections of the site to make sure that the levels don't change dramatically so that the bungalows then become, you know, the same level as a 2-storey house, for example. And that will be an ongoing process, something put into the diary. And I'm sure whilst they're there looking at levels, they'll be looking at other concerns that the parish council may have as well.
Any other comments anybody else wishes to make? Councillor Jameson.
Thank you. I do, looking at the original plan that we agreed, the outline plan and this current one, I can understand and tend to agree with Councillor Arthur and the parish that the original plan was a lot more open. There seemed to be a lot more free space there for residents, and while this new plan looks a lot more roady, a lot more concrete, a lot more concentrated on the road and less on the open space. And when you compare them side by side, there's a big difference. So I can certainly understand the unhappiness of the parish council with this new layout.
Thank you, Councillor Jameson. Anyone else wish to make any comments? Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm between a rock and a hard place at the moment, but if this application is approved, obviously I would like to see that condition for the swale and the protection of small children around it, as we've had on numerous occasions on other applications. So that is certainly one that needs to be added to the list. And I'm not really trying to put another condition on, which is effectively hard to maintain sometimes. So if that is that, I'd just like to say thank you to our officer, Sam. It was an excellent presentation, and I think most of the members will agree that she covered all of the situations and answered all the situations well. So thank you, Sam. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. can I just ask a question about the condition? We can add it if we wish.
Yes, we can add details to be agreed for the fencing of the suds area and life belts.
But we'd have to get the proposal and the seconder to agree to that then. So, no, hang on, sorry, no.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm more than happy. It's a safety issue, and I think the agent also made a point that could be safety concerns, and so I would be happy to include that. You can ask my seconder in a moment, but could we also add on that because the agent did say that he was sympathetic towards making sure that they could control no cars being parked on there as much as possible. So I think that's an important thing, and he's shaking his head. So I think that you could work with him to make sure that that is also addressed.
I think the agent did actually confirm that on the revised landscape drawings there are bollards actually around that green area.
But as we explained at the time, Mr. Chairman, some of the bollards may be unsightly, so there may be other ways where they can put low hedging and this sort of thing in. And that's really all I'm saying. But I'll leave it in your control, and I'm sure that you can work together. And I'm happy to accept the additional condition.
You're a seconder? Happy to accept the additional condition?
Yeah, no, that sounds very sensible.
Thank you.
Chair, sorry, I didn't catch the second condition from Sam. He said boundary treatment for the swale, and there's a second condition you mentioned.
No,
to be and life belts to be included for water safety.
Okay. Any other comments? Anyone wants to say anything? No? If not, we have a proposal and a seconder. Can I just ask Claire to clarify exactly what we're voting on?
Chair, the three conditions I have, other than those already in writing from the officer, are boundary condition for the swale, provision of life belts for the swale suds area, and the third one, which Councillor Beer asked for, was for there to be boundary treatment to the parking areas to stop cars parking on the grass.
Let's Councillor Busby.
Sorry, I tried to get in. Sorry, a quick question, if I may. The proposed housing mix of the market housing, is that similar to what was proposed in the outline?
So in the outline, I believe that some of the bungalows, or one of the bungalows, was to be 2-bedroomed. However, the overall mix of the housing, so 2, 3 and 4 bedroom, and the number of those properties are the same as the outline, even though some of them have changed between the single storey and the 2-storey dwellings.
Anything else? If not, I'll hand over to Claire.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Beer. Thank you.
Not coming up on mine, Claire.
We need to scroll down.
Ah, got it. Thanks.
Got it?
Thank you, Chair. That's 9 votes for and 2 against. That's carried.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your attendance. And the next meeting of the Planning Committee will be on the 17th of November. I now formally close the meeting. As soon as I've done that, Councillor Ayres is asked to remind you